Okay, wonderful. We're going live. Just a second or two here. And for everybody who's online right now, welcome to Marketo user groups. And we are live. So welcome to our Marketo user group for November of 2022. This one's really interesting. It's about creating email campaigns that convert. My name is Michael Tucker, Marketo subject matter expert and founder of Conversion Store. And we do consulting with a lot of different companies that use Marketo and Engage for their marketing automation needs. Today is a really interesting one because one of our own gets to present a little bit about some of the details that we go through when we're creating these different email campaigns and working with different clients to be able to get some of their messaging out, again, using Marketo to their target audiences. So, please welcome Desiree Landa from Conversion Store to be able to speak this month for our Marketo user group. Couple of different housekeeping things. As always, we want to just talk a little bit about some of our group values. And so really important to kind of understand that this is really a safe space to be able to learn. So there's no such thing as a dumb question. If any of you are watching this on the LinkedIn live stream, you have any questions, you can drop those into the chat. We'll bring those up as we're going through this presentation. And we highly encourage you to be able to share some of your questions because it's how we all learned about the platform. Marketo is a really interesting platform, a lot of capabilities in it, but also a lot of different ways to be able to use the platform, and all of them are arguably successful. So understand that there's no uniform right way or wrong way to be able to use Marketo. The final answer is it's the right way for you and what you're doing with your business. It's collaborative, so definitely want to make sure that it's a place where you can learn. It's not designed to be a sales atmosphere. It's designed to be a learning atmosphere. We want to make it fun and enjoyable, and we also want your time here while you're watching this to be something that you can take away as kind of a value-added activity that really enhances your career and what you're trying to do in your Marketo instance and in your overall marketing operations function at your company. We're going to talk a little bit about some learning resources. We have a lot of different changes to the way that we're managing user groups, and a lot of different ways that you can engage with us and with some of the different content that we're creating in order to be able to augment some of your learning with Marketo, with Adobe Marketo Engage, just as things are changing inside of the overall ecosystem that we all operate within. We'll talk a little bit about some of the upcoming events that we have planned, and some great ways that, while you might not necessarily be able to kind of come and meet in person all the time, there's a lot more online activities that are happening these days that are really creating opportunities for you to be able to learn from the comfort of your desk without having to kind of get in your car and travel halfway across town to try and meet people in person and find the right spot to be able to kind of connect. And we'll get into our feature presentation. I'm going to piggyback on the tail end of what Desiree is presenting to talk a little bit about how this works inside of Marketo, and we'll get into a live instance and be able to give you a little bit of a demonstration and show you a little bit about how it works. And then we'll take any questions and answers. And again, if you have any, feel free to drop those into the LinkedIn streaming chat, and we'll then answer those and bring those up as well too, as just part of the presentation. With that, let's introduce you with a couple of different learning concepts. So something that we have introduced over the past year has been Marketo Minutes. We've been doing these over the summer, and actually throughout most of the year. They've been just quick video sessions that originally were just designed to give you kind of 10 or 15 minute hands-on tactical Marketo information, and that's blossomed over the year to be able to be a full website at marketominutes.com. That has information about upcoming events that you can attend and participate to learn about Marketo. Of course, the video content, and then also something that we're going to talk about in a moment here, which is our Marketo Learning Lounge series, which is just an open area where you can come and it's kind of like an Ask Me Anything, and also kind of like the champion bar that they used to have inside of some of the live summit events back in the Marketo Summit days. So a lot of opportunities there where you can just come and pick the brains of a lot of people who either have MCEs or are champions like me, or have been in the platform for a while too. So if you go to marketominutes.com, you can see links to this site and all the other different learning content that we have there. Of course, we also still have the Marketo YouTube channel. So a lot of content that's there. We've added a Marketo Minutes channel as well. If you go to conversionstore.com/video, we have just a redirect that's kind of set up, has over 5 years of content. There's almost, I think, about 1,000 hours worth of Marketo content about how to learn in different ways to be able to handle all sorts of different things inside of your marketing automation here. This is also the channel that has been home to the champion office hours for the past year and a half. So a lot of content that's there, and we're also hosting Marketo Minutes videos on here as well too. So those are, if you don't have a full hour to be able to spend, a lot of this content is kind of hour long. So it's a great way for you to be able to stream it or watch it on your phone or watch it on a tablet. If you are want to step away from your office, you have that luxury to be able to do that. But if you don't, hop in to look at some of the Marketo Minute videos, because they're only about 10 to 15 minutes, and they have a lot of the hands-on knowledge that you can use to be able to make the most out of your Marketo instance. And then the last thing, Marketo Learning Lounge is something that we've been introducing. So it's this open venue. It's not a webinar format. It's actually designed so that you can participate with all of the other people that are on that call. So we'll break out into specific groups, ask whatever questions you want in advance, and we'll make sure that we are handling those questions so that you can get the actual answers that you are dealing with in your specific Marketo instance. So it's not like this where we're presenting on a top level and just talking about one broad subject. It's not recorded either, so it gives you the ability to go in and specifically look at different people with different people who are Marketo administrators at your instance and debug what's going on, figuring out what's happening. So we just ran one of these November 17th. We are going to do one as well in December. We're going to move it up a week because of the Christmas holiday here in the US and worldwide, I guess. So we're going to move that to the Thursday before Christmas. I'm struggling to remember what the date on that is, but we'll post it inside of the LinkedIn chat in a minute. And with that, I want to introduce you to Desiree Landa. So Desiree is a digital marketing specialist here at Conversion Store, and she's going to go into some details. Has a history with email marketing, and can give you a lot of information about just some of the metrics and some of the things that are happening out in the marketplace for what's happening in email marketing these days. So with that, I'll turn it over to Desiree, and let me turn off the screen share and hand it over to you, Desiree.
Thank you. Let me get my screen share up. So before I get started, before I bring up my slides, like Michael said, I'm Desiree from the Conversion Store. I handle most things digital marketing. I've been in marketing for about 10 years, and there's probably not an industry I haven't been in. So the content that I'm bringing to you today is just some of the things that I've picked up along the way. A number that I want you to remember with email marketing is that the average person receives 121 emails a day. That's 121 different emails from different people, and they check their inboxes almost 3 to 5 times a day. So that's 3 to 5 opportunities for you to get in front of your target audience. It's also brings up the challenge of having to cut through the noise of those other 120 emails. So the tips that I'm bringing to you today are things that you can try and try to apply to your own emails to hopefully get through the noise and get to the person that you're trying to speak to. So we're going to start off with some benchmarks, just email benchmarks by industry. You can see here are the listings of the industry. We've got advertising, education, retail, all the good things. Open rates, click-through rates, click-to-open rates. If you find your industry and you find that your numbers are lower than some of these numbers, then these next 5 tips are for you. For our purposes today, we're going to look through benchmarks by day. So when you look at some of the numbers, you can kind of pick out that a lot of them are pretty similar. Unsub rate, straight across the board. Click to open rate, they change by like a 0.1 difference. Open rate, though, gives you the most diversity when it comes to numbers. So I just picked out some of the important ones. The highest open rate days are going to be Monday. The highest click-through rate days are going to be Tuesday. And then, of course, the lowest click-through rates and the lowest open rates are going to be your weekend. So back to slide 1, just know when to reach your audience. Know what days they're opening, know what times they're opening. I put just the industry standard best times are 9 to 11 a.m. and 1 to 2 p.m. But of course, these are just benchmarks. So they're going to be different for every organization, but these give you times to at least start with trying. My second tip is to craft your subject line. So this is going to be one of the best ways to ensure that you have a better open rate. It has to be direct but creative. It has to speak to exact. Sometimes, if you can, try to add in personalization. So if you're speaking to a certain, I don't know, city or a certain type of audience, or you're speaking to a specific event, try to personalize it to that. Also, don't use spam words. That's anything like free, deals in all caps. Those are going to get you sent straight to Google spam folders. And you can't raise your open rate if you're not going to the right inbox. So just keep that in mind. Pro tips, don't be afraid of emojis if you're B2C, but also switch up who your email is coming from. So if you're sending a support email, send it from support. If it's a very important message that you want to get across, send it from, I don't know, maybe the president or the CEO. If it's going to be a holiday deal, send it from the sales rep that's responsible for that region. Try to be as personal with the subject line and the sender as you possibly can. My third tip is to design emails for segmented audiences. So say you are in the higher ed industry, right? The email that you send to a prospective student at the beginning of the semester is going to be different than the email that you send to a current student. Or if you're in an event space, the email that you're going to send to vendors is going to be different than the email that you send to people that you want to buy tickets. So just keep that in mind. The most basic of ways to change these emails is to, one, start with your basic content in just a Word doc, and then just to switch up your subject line and your intro paragraph will do you wonders if you can just cater that to the audience that you're sending it to. My fourth tip is to write engaging content. So write what you would want to read. Write like you're speaking to a person. Things like that. Also, keep in mind that not everyone is going to read your entire email. So what we use in the marketing world is a method called the inverted pyramid, which what it does is it leads your audience straight from your header image down to your headline through your content straight to your CTA. So it draws the eye exactly to where you want people to click, but it also hits a person, say they're skimming, it hits them with the headline, it hits them with the CTA, it hits them with the important notes of your message that you really want to get across. And that leads us right into our fifth tip, which is to use one clear and concise CTA. Now, this doesn't mean that you can only have one link in your email. It doesn't even mean that you can only have one button. What it means is that all the hyperlinks and CTA buttons in your email need to be going to the same place, need to be telling the same story. I actually recommend having two CTA buttons, one in your header and one at the bottom, just in case, you know, you've got a longer email, someone doesn't want to scroll, or you have those people that just kind of get to the middle and decide to, they're done. So it gives you an opportunity to hit them in two different spots. I always like to tell people that when a person asks you for directions, you're not going to tell them there's exactly 6 ways to get to where you want to go. You're going to give them the best way to get there. And essentially, when a customer is asking for your emails, they're asking for you to tell them where you want them to go with your content. So give them one direct path to exactly where you want to lead them. And that's my last slide. So I'll stop sharing there. But I just want you to take away that these are guidelines. They are benchmarks, but they're also guidelines. So when you're A/B testing your subject line or your CTA or things of that nature, you can start here, but if these don't work, then you try something else. Every organization is going to have a very different recipe for success when it comes to email conversions, but I'm just giving you where you should start to look to better your open rates and your click-through rates. And with that, I'll hand it off to Michael.
That's terrific, Desiree. Hey, thank you so much for being able to share that as well too. And I think you make a great point there at the end too, is that every company is a little bit different about how they approach this. And so what we do in the B2B marketing world is going to differ from B2C marketing, is going to differ from a company that's focused in an industrial space, from a company that's focused in software as a service or manufacturing or healthcare or finance. Or higher ed. And so all of those things are slightly different. So it's important to be able to kind of stop before you dive into some of this email content tactically, and kind of take a look at your environment. So my section is going to kind of relate to that is okay, so all of the things that Desiree shared with you, now that you've kind of thought through some of the strategy and kind of when you want to communicate to people, what do you do inside of Marketo to be able to operationalize that, to actually turn some of that idea about the creative that you want to develop and actually build that into your Marketo instance? So I'll pull up a set of slides here to be able to go through that a little bit. And really what we want to talk about when we go into email content inside of Marketo, there are 4 different areas. So when you click on the Design Studio area inside of your Marketo instance, you'll see 4 different types of assets that specifically relate to email creation. Now, there are things like landing page creation and forms that are also important for your brand identity and for some of the other work that you're doing. But for today's discussion, we're really just talking about these 4 areas. So the first one is email templates. And what email templates do is they actually give you the ability to build in all the different branding, some of the different trade dress, the colors, the font sizes, the font faces that are involved in your email communication. From there, you build out emails, so the actual creative. We're going to get into a live Marketo instance in a second to show you some of that, but emails are drag and drop assets. They're easy to use. They have they use the user interface. You don't need to know code to be able to build emails, but you do need to know code to be able to build out customized email templates. We have a really great Marketo Minutes episode that talks about building email templates. without using code, using some of the existing templates that are inside of your Marketo instance. So there's usually, I think, about 30 of them that are included that give you certain capabilities. But if you want to get the full functionality of your brand, you definitely want to do those in code. Okay. Images and files are publicly facing assets. So think about things like PDF files or your brand identity, your logo, things like that. And those get included inside of your Marketo instance. And snippets are like pre-built content that you can use for multiple assets or for landing page content. So you can build one piece of HTML code and have it tagged to 70 different emails, and then update that one piece of code, press publish, and instantly everything else gets updated inside of all your emails. So we'll dive into some of these in a second. All right. So in email editing, you need to have a container, one area that defines all of the different modules that you're going to place inside of your Marketo email. Modules themselves are the actual areas where you build out your content blocks, which are here in red, are kind of point and click areas that you can easily update. And then variables finally are areas where you can change more nuanced pieces. So think about like some of the color codes. So we'll drop into the email editor right now and just show you a little bit about what that looks like. So give me a moment here. So this is our area for the parking lot party, which we have covered in numerous different Marketo user groups in different sessions in different Marketo sessions since 2020. It's all about a experiential marketing event that happened at a Chevy Buick GMC dealership outside of Atlanta. And so this one email is an email that was involved in that email marketing event, in that email event program. So you can see all of the different copy that's here. We're talking about a boat launch. So you've got a CTA button here. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different modules that are in that email. So as I click inside of each of these modules, I have a series of different editable areas, editable content blocks. So this is for a boat launch. This is for the date and time. I can click inside of these, and you can see I have the ability to be able to just simply go ahead and edit them, just without using any code. If I want to add code, I can. I have an HTML editor here that I can add in. If I want to create tokens and actually put in a local date token that basically says what date this event is happening, I have the ability to be able to do that as well too. And I also have all of these different variables on the right-hand side that you'll see here. So if I want to do things like change the actual button color, it's easy for me to go ahead and do this here. Let's say I want to change it to like a yellow hue. I can just quickly make a couple of changes, and you'll start to see those will actually update inside of the border color. If I want to change the actual background itself, I can copy and paste the actual color into my button background, and you'll see it start to actually change and update. Now, I wouldn't do a white on yellow per se, but the point of this is that you have the ability inside of the interface, again, without knowing code, to be able to change all of these color codes, to do things like change the background image if you wanted to be able to change this from boat to something else, right? So important to kind of understand here that as you're getting in here, you can take a look at different images, pick different folders, and then make those updates, or set that up for different people of your team who understand some of the creative and some of the marketing communication strategy without having to go in and if let's say that they don't have the ability to have HTML knowledge or CSS or know things about VML, for example, and how to be able to make sure that that code looks correct inside of Microsoft Outlook versus Gmail or something along those lines. You don't have to know all of that code, and you can be perfectly satisfied to be a Marketo campaign operations person, Marketo user, and create really beautiful emails without having to do that. One of the things that gets missed a lot in this interface that I don't think a lot of people are familiar with is that on this left-hand tab about content is always visible immediately. But if you code your email templates correctly, using the right-hand tab, you have a series of different modules that you can drag and drop and add or remove out of this email. So it really opens up some of the content creation work that you're able to do by being able to build, to use these drag and drop interfaces for different modules. And you can see I can move this into mobile mode. I can move this into desktop mode. I can edit the plain text version of this or the HTML version of this. So I have a lot of different options that are here in order to be able to use the email editor. So really it just starts to kind of whet your appetite a little bit. And one last thing I'll share with you a little bit more too is some of the things that we talked about as well. So let's say that you're building a snippet here and you want to build something around your footer, right? You can replace these with a snippet. Just very simply gives you the ability to point and click and choose all of the different snippets that are inside of this instance to be able to replace that boilerplate language. If your legal team comes to you in a year from now and they say, well, I need you to replace the boilerplate language with this new set for a new law that came out, rather than having to edit every single email that you've had to produce in your Marketo instance, it gives you that ability to change the one snippet and update all of those emails simultaneously, or with one mouse click, and basically have Marketo do all of that legwork for you. So really powerful feature there. Another really powerful feature too is being able to make a content block dynamic. So what does that mean when we make it dynamic? Well, what you're doing here, and we'll talk about this in other Marketo Minutes episodes, and probably in another Marketo user group, is that you can set up different segmentations to talk about some of the different types of people, of leads that exist in your database. So if I want to choose from buyer personas, for example, or based on people in industries, so let's say buyer personas, and I'm looking at off-road enthusiasts or media analysts or suburban families, I can then use this to basically have Marketo have this email change based on who is receiving it or who Marketo is sending it to. And that those get created with all sorts of different factors, from behavioral data to demographic information to information about the different types of marketing campaigns that that different leads are interacting with as they're proceeding through the customer journey with you and your different team members. So just a few things to be able to consider here. If I save this, you'll see that I now have the ability to be able to create dynamic versions of this, and I can actually look at all of the different editable blocks that are in this entire email, and then change those accordingly. So just a few different options that you have here. And for those of you that are maybe new to the Design Studio interface, or maybe are just looking for to get a better grasp of some of the functionality that you might not use, I'm hoping that this gives you kind of a good demonstration to kind of get started off with. Again, we mentioned that drag and drop is available, so lots of capabilities there. You don't have to know HTML code in order to be able to do this. All right, so a couple of best practices, some things to leave you off with. Number one, start with your business needs first. Begin with your brand book. Understand for a moment there about what are the elements of your brand that different people on your marketing team are allowed to change. What are the pieces that are key to your brand that cannot change? And all of the functionality that I mentioned here, the things about the different modules, you can actually change the HTML code in your template and your email templates and remove that so that people cannot make those edits, that they can't quickly do a double click and go in here and change boat launch, for example, if that's a piece, or your logo, for example. That's important to kind of understand that in advance. The beauty of Marketo, part of why it's also so complicated, is that you have the complete ability to be able to change it to whatever works best for your business. What works best for your business is going to be completely different than what works best for somebody else's business. So keep that in mind. What do people have the rights to change? The next piece here is to inventory the different types of content that you're going to be creating. So if your company does a lot of event marketing, trade shows, or if they do a lot of newsletters, build email templates just with the modules that you need for those specific pieces. Look, when I go in here and I take a look at all of the different modules that I can choose in this template, I've got a pretty good range. I've seen some templates, admittedly, over the years that have much, much more module upon module upon module upon module. And oftentimes those are because they're creating a master template, if you will, to handle any kind of situation that would ever come up. Now, that's all well and good, except that it adds all of these different modules that people have to scroll through, and it increases the probability that maybe somebody uses the wrong type of a module that doesn't perform the way that they want them to. It also just makes it a lot more harder and more complicated to be able to create email content. Rather than going through that realm, try and scale them down. It also decreases the amount of code that exists in your email template, which always definitely helps, both from a loading performance standpoint, a loading standpoint. The more of these modules you are using in your actual email creative, the more code that gets sent, the more complicated it becomes, to be able to have the email client, the recipient, if you will, has to parse through a lot more code, which doesn't help your cause. So you want these messages to be concise and quick and easy for people to be able to read. So use the modules and the variables that you use. And so, pre-configure your emails once you've built those out within a program template. So we're talking about email templates, but within those, you also want to be creating program templates. Why do you want to do that? Well, program templates allow you to introduce tokens, local tokens, that you can then put inside of your emails, which makes it a lot easier to be able to create content. Again, we'll talk a little bit about that at another point. Tokens are their own specific piece. Some of the pieces we've talked about with dynamic content, you can go even deeper than what we've done here today, but important to be able to understand that if you can pre-build program templates with all of the emails that you use, when you go to clone those, all of the email, all of the branding, all of the logic in your smart campaigns is automatically copied over as well. And so when you're trying to launch a new initiative, let's say that you do a monthly newsletter, how much easier is it to have all of the logic done from last month's newsletter or the month before that and be able to repurpose that in order to be able to build out the newsletter that you need without, don't worry about the Marketo side of things. Worry more about the content that you want to talk about with your audience. And then the last one is to use rendering software, email on Acid or Litmus. It will help you to test for a variety of different types of email clients. Who's using Microsoft Outlook? Who's using Gmail? Who's using Ymail? Who's using AOL or another piece of or another email software? But keep in mind, they also handle a lot of older versions that are really not being practiced any longer. So, or they're regional uses. So I think there's a free.fr preview, which I believe from the top level domain there would probably indicate that it's run by an ISP out of France. If you do not have the French market in your footprint, don't worry about testing for that, because it won't be worthwhile. Or if you don't communicate in French, that might not be the one that you want to focus on when you're trying to test how your email is going to render. Or if you're looking at a really old piece of software, right? I have it here. Don't worry about people that are using Eudora. And for those of you old enough to remember that, one of the original email software pieces, right? People aren't using that anymore. So even though you can test for it and you can kind of see how your particular template and the responsiveness of your template works, it's probably more information that you need to be worried about. Our biggest objective with a lot of this content is being able to build email creative that converts. And that's the whole purpose of today's session. If you have any questions for this, feel free to drop them into the chat. And even if you're watching the recording of this afterwards, we will place the information in the we'll respond back to you. Basically, we'll send you a direct message afterwards. Or you can always go to our website at marketominutes.com to get more information about this Marketo user group session, future ones that are coming up, and other information that as you need it to be able to learn more about Marketo. And with that, we'll just give you one last thing here just to show you about some of the upcoming events that we have. The next Learning Lounge that we have is December the 15th. Again, free to join. Ask us any questions in advance. You'll find a link on marketominutes.com. And then in January 12th is when we're going to schedule our next Marketo user group. So we'll probably go into some of the topics that we're talking about here, and more so. If you have specific topics that you want us to be able to cover, let us know, and we'll be able to add those into the event. With that, really want to thank you for your time for joining us today, and hope to be able to answer any other questions that you have. In the meantime, happy Marketoing.